I want to know who would you fight, Matt?
Like a marketing person?
Yeah, it has to be somebody in our space.
Oh man,
I'd fight Tony Robbins.
Tony Robbins, interesting. I think I know Russell Brunson will probably kick a lot of ass because he's been wrestling for a long time.
He's a wrestler. It's true.
Yeah, I mean, I need somebody scrawny. I think I would probably go with Brendan Burchard.
He's pretty small.
Good morning, marketers. We are back, and today we got a new crew with us. We got Yaro, who was with us on the last episode, and we got Tom Morkes from InfoStack. Say hi, guys.
How you doing, Matt?
And these guys are two great marketers who will have a lot of insights. We're going to be covering news that's happening for creators and how some creators are getting paid some really big bucks. Before we get into it, why don't you guys both kind of take a minute to introduce yourselves? Because Yaro, I don't think we did a lot introducing you last time, and then Tom as well, just so that way the audience kind of gets to know you guys. So Yaro, why don't you go first?
Yeah, you kind of did last time, Matt. We were talking about blogging for 20 years. But long story short, started a blog in late 90s. Actually, it's too long a story now, but I've been teaching blogging how to make money for a good 15 years. But the last sort of 5-6 years, I've been co-founder of inboxdone.com, which is an email management virtual assistant company. And Tom happens to be one of our very early customers. So great social proof here, Matt. Thanks for choosing Tom to reinforce.
I thought that was a funny coincidence. Yeah. Tom and I were meeting just to catch up, and then I found out you guys worked together, and then Tom was used to have a podcast, and then he was down to get on here.
And this is where, Matt, Tom, you say you buy
yourself?
all of the InfoStack, products that are launched, right? So
if you have a daily deal, I'm in.
I mean, I'm going to leave it there because honestly, angel investing, digital nomad, traveling around the world, sold a few companies or websites, really more than companies, but been living the laptop lifestyle for most of my adult life. That's what matters. And more importantly, for the topic of this podcast, I love content. I've been blogging, podcasting, watching YouTube. I'm very proud that some of my social accounts are registered in 2006, 2004, 2005. I even have Yaro on Reddit, which is the one place I got YARO as my username. So very proud of that.
Nice. And also, you've been wanting to get into the creator space for a while, right? So you went to VidCon. So I assume you're applying to kind of get on YouTube and doing more on YouTube?
Yeah, but to be honest, yes, as a creator, but more as a platform owner supporting creators. I've always wanted to do software, SaaS. So I'm working on something called Candid behind the scenes right now. For sure, we'll show you guys when it's, a beta is ready to go. And it is 100% for creators, monetization, of their content. But I do want to get my own YouTube going. I've actually got my first ever editor I just hired. So I'm growing up, I guess, like you've been doing, Matt. And we'll be looking forward to putting out some videos that just have a little more polish with the content and the way it's produced. I've got my first one coming up soon on the apartment renovation I did in Ukraine, and whether that apartment is even still in existence or not, given that the war is happening right now. So stay tuned.
Right. So is it going to be kind of like a vlog style?
Yeah. I mean, my YouTube channel has been there since 2007, and it's a mess because it's me doing really spotty early videos about product launches, Tom's kind of area, and then early podcast, but it was audio only, no video, just me dumping the audio track onto the YouTube stream. Then there's some travel stuff of me just walking and talking to my camera, my phone, whatever. So it's just, there's no continuity, there's no sense of theme. And yes, so I want to basically get higher quality vlogging, going to sort of translate what I already know for my content that's worked in written content into video content.
I can tell you put a lot of effort into your blog posts. So
some of them.
If you put that, if you kind of translate that same story into YouTube videos, I think that would actually be great.
I hope, and get the visuals to go with it. So that's why I need the editor.
Yeah, I really considered doing that when I wanted to get onto YouTube, but I realized that it's so hard to just talk to the camera by yourself and just be do your own thing, and you just got to produce the whole thing yourself. Even though I love it and it's a great creative process, it just I'd want to take so much time to do it because I'm going to be kind of like a perfectionist doing that, right? So I think it is a challenging road. Plus, YouTube, anything you do on YouTube is going to take you 2 years, by the time you really build that audience that's watching that content, right?
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to. I've got 20 videos lined up, and I suspect that's probably 20 months worth of work, over that time frame. So,
Right. Tom,
What's going on, Matt?
tell the audience a bit about you and who you are.
Yeah, it's funny because Yaro was talking about the digital nomad lifestyle. I did that for a bit. Before that, I was in the Army, so I spent about 5 years commissioned. But then when I got out, I decided, hey, I'm going to go travel around the world and start a blog. So that was back in 2013. So 2013, 14, I was like traveling around the world, blogging, podcasting, trying to figure all that out. Got that going well enough where I didn't have to get a real job when I got back to the States. And then started a publishing company. And then most recently co-founded InfoStack, where we do discount deals. I know you'll love that, Matt. And, so a lot of just bundles of information products. And yeah, it's kind of, it's funny just talking about content creation. Like, I love it. It's like one of my favorite things. I just find like I don't have time for it because writing blogs used to take me hours or days, like an absurd amount of time. It was definitely like looking back, it was like definitely worth the effort. I still get traffic to a lot of those blog posts. I still can refer them to people who need help with certain things. But the idea of sitting down to write a blog post now at this point in my life, I'm like, I can't do it. So I am very keen on YouTube, but then again have the same concerns. I'm like, I need to get into editing. I need to get all this stuff built around it. I'm a little scared of that. And then the idea of podcasting too, it's even that. It's like sitting down to do a podcast. I'm like, do I have time anymore for this? It's like, I really want to get into it though. So this is my foray back into it. I feel like dipping my toes with this because you have all the pressure on this, Matt. You have to do all the editing. I don't have to. So this is perfect.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is like we figured out a lot of processes and systems to make this easy, right? Our goal with the show when we started it was that we just show up and just hit record, right? And the big bottleneck that I wasn't able to outsource was like finding these stories, right? And to be able to like figure out what we're going to talk about. So now we have Jesse, who's the new producer, who's going to help us to find these stories. And we discussed before we recorded how, if there's certain things that we want to talk about, we can just kind of like get into that sort of stuff. But in terms of the editing and the publishing and all that kind of stuff, you're going to see, Tom, over the next few weeks, kind of how we go through the process and maybe, I think we figured it out to make it somewhat easy.
Yeah, I think for a lot of content creators too, it's one of the things that scares them, right? I would think, is especially because of how well produced everything is today. I look at it, I'm like, if I had started this 10 years ago, if I had started YouTube the same time I started podcasting or blogging, then maybe I'd already have that progress made. But now I'm like, oh man, the production value is so high in all these things. So yeah, I'm excited to explore it and just see how it could be done well.
Well, everyone always starts off with low production, right? And then once you start making some real money, then you kind of up the production, right? Right now, we're pretty low production, right? We're three guys in separate places, doing our thing.
But honestly,
I've seen that we are
not unusual though. Like I think most of the podcasts I watch on YouTube are this. Like you already are equivalent to All In or some of the other ones out there. So I don't think that's an issue. It's whether we say interesting things. No pressure, guys. We got to be entertaining and smart. That's all.
Yeah. Well, speaking of interesting things, let's get into our first story. So first story up was Andrew Schulz. He's a comedian who got very popular on YouTube for making these really, they're like, I don't know how to explain it. They were obviously funny videos. I think originally he was posting his stand-up comedy that he was doing on YouTube. It was funny, and that started going viral. But he would make these videos that were very punchy and like about a topic. So kind of like John Oliver that would do these kind of like exposés into things and kind of making jokes throughout it. So he would script out this, very funny, thing about a topic. And that style of that show, which really picked up steam on his main channel, the Andrew Schulz YouTube channel, he ended up getting a Netflix deal. And so he has a Netflix show. It's called Schulz Saves America. Right? It's on Netflix. And so that whole style, that show is basically what his YouTube channel was. If you ever want to watch that, right? It's really well done, really well scripted. Sometimes he does these really short versions of that at the beginning of his podcast, the Flagrant podcast. Anyways, so that really helped him like pick up a lot of steam on YouTube over the last few years. This is, I think, pre-COVID. And then he started his podcast, Flagrant 2. I don't know why it's ever called Flagrant 2. Now it's just called Flagrant. I guess they got rid of their Patreon. I don't even know. But he posted not too long ago that he has a comedy special that was called The Infamous Tour. I actually went to the shows in Vancouver, and he was going to sell this to a broadcaster, which I assume was Netflix, or they had already bought it. I think that was the story. They had already bought it, and then some of the jokes were maybe more edgy or whatever. So he posted this video talking about kind of what's happening, and that the network was worried about the backlash from some of these jokes, and they wanted him to edit it. And so then he decided that he would buy it back. I assume it cost him millions of dollars to buy it back. Then he posted this on his Twitter, on his Instagram, and so on, basically saying he's bought it back, and now he's asking people to go to Moment House to pre-order the special, and it's $20 to be able to watch this special on Moment House. So the reason why I think this is interesting is that had he paid millions of dollars, right? I think he got several $1 million for his show on Netflix. I think he actually talked about the number. I want to say it was like 5 to 10 million, something like that. So, and I remember, what's his name? Dave Chappelle. He got several million for his comedy special, right? So let's just say this is going to be like probably, I'm just wild guess, $2 million, right? It's a big gamble, right? When you have guaranteed $2 million from Netflix, right? The distribution, Netflix, brings some credibility. And again, I'm only assuming that this deal was with Netflix because his previous show was on Netflix. To then take the show and say, I'm just going to sell it myself and maybe make over $2 million, right? I just think it's a really ballsy move. I actually like it, and I really hope it's successful because it's going to really disrupt the industry if that works, if what he's doing is going to work. And he must know his number. He has good amount of subscribers. He sold out his, his comedy tour or whatever. And even like just diving into Moment House, it appears what it is kind of like you are renting, or sorry, the event takes place. Like everyone's going to watch at the same time here on July 17th at 6:00, right? And then you get the replay available for 14 days in case you can't make it to the date. So it's like, like in our world, it's like pre-selling a webinar, right? For a price. It all takes place at one time. Then you have access to the replay for 14 days. It's an interesting model. Just looking at this is like selling entertainment, right? But in our world, we could sell a course or a day event or whatever it is, right?
I think the cachet of having a Netflix show as a comedian is huge. So to give that up is pretty ballsy straight away. We don't know the numbers, so you're guessing 2 million. We don't know financially how bad this is for him. We don't know how big his database is for selling it himself, so we don't know what he's potentially going to earn.
Well, I don't think he does like email marketing type stuff, right? You could just look at his followers on Instagram.
Well, even worse than really,
Twitter,
right?
And like stuff like
he's
that.
Gonna rely on social or maybe word of mouth, but
yeah, here he's got 400,000 on Twitter, and then his YouTube channel's got a few 100,000.
So I doubt he'll recoup. Who knows? Long story short, we don't know the numbers. We don't know how bad or how good this is for him. I do think, and this is something I've really been surprised about with comedians for a long time. They get away with saying ridiculous things that would, if anyone else would say them, they'd be canceled. And some comedians do get canceled because they, tweet out something or say something. But there's a lot.
Hey, just real quick, I just want to say 2 million followers on Instagram. So that could mean something.
So
anyways.
I understand why Netflix probably, now things are getting more, conservative or maybe less conservative. Not sure what you're going to put it. Politics versus what you say. And because of that, they have to edit. Now, it sounds like this guy, honestly, I don't know him, but he sounds like he's really wants to control his message and feels like his creativity is probably being hindered by them editing out certain things. He doesn't agree with it. He's got the power to buy it back. So fair enough. I do think as a bigger discussion, maybe not for our podcast though, is, what you can and can't say on media and the risk of getting canceled, versus ownership of your content as well. If you're sharing it on an external platform, like, I don't know, but I would be stoked to get a Netflix deal, and I'd probably be willing. Maybe I'm more of a sellout than Andrew Schulz is, but I'd be willing to go through whatever hoops they need me to go through to make it compatible for their platform. They own it. I'm fine with that, because man, I'm then forever as featured on Netflix. And I know, going back to what you're talking about from our world, the power of that brand being associated with my name. I will forever be a person who had a show on Netflix. Like, I will forever be a published author.
Right. But he already has a show on
so
Netflix.
He's canceling the second one then.
Yeah,
It's like
'cause he's
audience jacking, right? Like, I think it's brilliant. I think, and I think the thing is, I'm curious about the numbers, but it's $15 for the show, right? For this infamous show. So how many does he? I mean, 200,000. Do you think he can get 200,000 customers from it? I think so. That's 3 million right there. So like,
yeah,
to
that's
me,
10% of his Instagram following.
right? And maybe that's high for the average Instagram following, but because he has the Netflix show, he has the brand.
I don't think
he's
it
already
is.
there. Does he not? I thought he has the Netflix show.
Well, yeah, he has a Netflix show. It's already there.
Right.
Right. But yeah, if you go to his, I'm just thinking like how much you can convert from either like a swipe up on a story, posting on his Instagram. Plus he has his YouTube channel, which is getting, he could constantly promote that as it's happening. Right. So they have almost 1 million subscribers on YouTube, 770. Right.
I don't know, guys.
Sorry.
I think we're guessing.
700.
We're never going to know, up or down. How many? What's the deal with Netflix? How many views does he get on Netflix versus what he can generate? Where does he get more people to his live
I think Netflix
shows,
doesn't tell you.
right? Like, there's too many things to control here.
Yeah.
So,
But it would be interesting too, actually, if people are buying through Moment House. I bet you he gets everybody's email address, probably for the first time, right? And we all know the power of email marketing.
but you have to say
So
though,
if he does,
I'm just going to say that a lot of mainstream creators do not understand email marketing and do not tap into it.
that's 100%. Yeah. But had he, or if he does, even if he made $1 million in sales, but then he got all those email addresses and then he starts selling them merch, his next show, tickets,
Yeah, the shows in
whatever,
particular.
right? He basically gets access to the contact. Because I know CK Lewis is like that, right? He's been selling his own shows or tickets, his own tickets through his own website versus using a third party or something. I think he does something like that or sells, and so I know he has a big email list and that's why he's been so successful, right? So maybe he's taken something from that playbook. So speaking on Andrew Schulz, he had Logan Paul on his podcast, on the Flagrant podcast. And Logan Paul's been kind of hinting at this a lot, but he kind of basically said it really directly on the show that Floyd Mayweather had never paid him for the fight that they had, which is interesting because I didn't realize that Floyd was the one kind of controlling the whole exhibition and he was the one responsible to pay everybody. So I imagine they were both kind of working with a third party who would then kind of pay them out, right? So what's interesting about this one is that they were talking about if Logan Paul tries to take Floyd to court, that probably is going to cost him so much fighting in court that it's going to be like not worth it anyways, right? But the amount of publicity that Logan Paul is going to get throughout that process and how it's making Floyd look bad, I think, right? That is kind of making him seem like, he's not a fair business person. Let's just say that, right? That part's interesting, but also that, I guess Logan Paul didn't really look at the fine print of the contract. There's something about it within the contract that Floyd seems to think that he does not need to pay Logan Paul, I think. That's my understanding of kind of hearing about the story. So there's this whole contract law dispute, which is just kind of falls into business in general, just knowing kind of what's going on there. But maybe he was so excited just to be able to fight Floyd and kind of the publicity he would get from that he never really kind of looked into it that much. But I still think that he got so much publicity from being able to do that fight that even if he doesn't get paid, he still comes out a winner, right? Of course he wants his money, but I just think that's interesting.
I don't buy this at all. I think it is. I think it's
really?
just the continuation of the hype that two fighters will always do to keep the attention on them.
No way. Do you think it's leading to another fight?
If not, at least, it is a fight in itself. We're talking about it here. It's a big amount of money. I was just doing a bit of research into this too. This article, I'll share it with you guys, but if it's to be believed, he earned around 700 million pounds in total for the fight with Paul. And that's a lot of money. So I can't imagine that no matter how much free publicity Paul's getting from this, Logan Paul. There's no way, even 10% of whatever the takings are, it could be 70 million, could be 7 million. It's no small amount of money. So I think it's going to come through. I mean, who knows back and forth what's really going on. But I think, A, this is a publicity stunt that's continuing. B, I think he's going to get his money. I don't think it's 700 million in total that they split. I'm sure there's a lot of other people taking a cut out of that money. But
I don't think he's going to get his money.
I think he will.
No
we
way.
should follow up on this one for part 2, Matt. I think he's going to get it. Because I will. I can't imagine, even if he gets it through courts, it's pretty clear he did something. He should get paid, you know?
Right. Well, here it says...
Yeah, but Mayweather is pretty savvy. And I think when I listened to that YouTube interview where he's talking, he's like, well, the contract and being in the boxing realm, he basically sounded like effectively he had earmarked out certain expenses. And I'm sure Mayweather, being a great businessman, was able to funnel money into expenses that he kind of controlled.
So you think he just broke even,
So
right?
I bet it's probably...
Like
Oh, well, I mean, maybe on paper he did. What I'm saying is he prepaid him. I don't know. I mean, allegedly, but like he's pretty savvy that way. And I bet that I also don't see Mayweather as being the kind of person to make a mistake on those kind of contracts. Like if he's gonna funnel the money into these things, I'll be surprised if anything happens with the court case. You know what I mean? Like I bet he's got it pretty locked down tight. So again, I'm kind of with you, Yaro. Yes and no on it, because like I think it seems like more of a publicity stunt. Like I would imagine Mayweather's contract law is like on point when it comes to these kind of events, because his gates for what Pacquiao was like half $1 billion. McGregor was like half a billion. He knows how to run these promotions and how to make a lot of money from them. So I don't know, just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I think that the contract is probably the way it is just the way it is. And probably Logan never, I don't know, maybe didn't look into it or whatever. But I highly doubt, because he said before that this has been an ongoing issue. I mean, this fight was so long ago. And he told him a long time ago, hey, if you don't pay me, basically he's going to like go public with a story. And I think this makes Floyd look really bad, but maybe Floyd wants to be the bad guy, right? Because the next time he has a fight, you want to see him get his ass kicked. Right? So you're right now, actually, now you're pointing this out. It seems like everything that the Paul brothers do is always just to create more drama and get more people talking about them. Because now, yes, we're talking about this. A lot of people are talking about this because it's very interesting. It's basically reminding everybody that Logan Paul fought Floyd, right? It's keeping that story going, right? And yeah, they are basically still battling. It would be very interesting if they fought again over this, where he's like, hey, fine, you want to get paid. Let's do another one, and I'm going to knock you out, right? That that could be, I don't know, but I don't know.
I just want to say
one.
that I'm not getting paid to be on this podcast, so there might be some controversy there as well. So.
What do you mean? We're going to get
not
battled?
paying me anything, and
yeah. So hey, it says here that he was supposed to get paid $5 million. That was the right number. So it's weird too that if Floyd's got a lot of money, why would he jip him for $5 million? The whole thing's kind of weird.
Because he's a businessman. he's in the shadiest sport in the world, in the universe. Everybody knows it, right? That boxing is bar none has probably the most corruption of any sport. I mean, that's maybe arguable.
Really?
Maybe I
didn't know that.
Consistently the most corrupt. So I think Mayweather's just a good businessman in the realm that he is in, and maybe he's and what Logan was alluding to or alleging was that he had fleeced others, and that he had done this with others, and so this isn't the first time. I thought that was kind of interesting. I think though Mayweather could probably care less, and again I think he understands the nature, which is kind of come back to what Yaro was saying. Any news is good news, or any press is good press. Like even if it's negative, even if he's the bad guy, it's like it's money for him. At the end of the day. And it was funny because he's like, oh, Mayweather's broke. It's like, I'm sure on paper he is broke, because if he's smart, he's funneled all his money into things so he doesn't have to pay taxes on any of this stuff. Like good on him. So he's broke on paper, but he's obviously not,
I heard Logan on his podcast talking about his desire to still win a fight. Like I don't think he's actually won one. It's all been losses or draws. I'm not up to date with it, but then he talked about how when he was on WrestleMania, he made more money. It was a lot safer. He enjoyed it, just as
More
much.
fun. He just signed a deal with
Which
with
doesn't
WWE.
surprise me, but he was like
Is that what it's called now? WWE.
WWE,
whatever.
yeah.
WWE,
World Wildlife
Old school,
Federation.
I
Yeah,
don't
he's going to save the animals. That's right.
yeah, that's right.
But yeah, he talked about there is something about wanting to get that win. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, God, we can be such looking for conspiracies here, but he went all 8 rounds fighting, the heavyweight most famous champion boxer ever, and this guy doesn't even come from boxing. If that was legitimate, like there wasn't some sort of WWE style setup to the fight, then back of his mind, he must be thinking, well, okay, I can surely actually win some of these boxing matches. Maybe I can actually, even retire with a winning record at least before I move on to WWE or something like that. But as was being said to him, I can't remember who it was talking to him. I think it might have been Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank was saying how, you're going to get brain damage. It's a high risk, high reward sort of sport. So is it worth it? You're going to lose your potential to continue to live a normal life after that. But
Right.
yeah, anyway, I'm not going to fight either of you guys. Just to be clear, I'm happy not to get paid. I'm pacifist. So.
What if it was for $5 million? $5 million.
Sign me up. I'll fight anybody.
I'll fight both of you at once for $5 million.
I'll fight Logan Paul and Mayweather at the same time.
Well, you're just going to fall over as soon as you get hit? That's what
Oh no, man! I'll be in it to win it. I'll train. I'll record the whole thing. That would be my foray into the YouTube. It would be my behind the scenes training camp for that. I would absolutely do that. I think that
Tom
would be funny
was in the
too.
military.
Yeah, I boxed in college too, so I mean, I guess I have a little bit of experience, but like I would absolutely love to do it. I think this stuff is hilarious. Like I was talking to you about this last week, Matt. Like I didn't mention this, but this Happy Punch promotion. So I got this on my screen, but this was started like a year ago, I think, or maybe codified like this year. But it's all about these content creators. It's like a promotion company for content creators for boxing. And I think it reminds me of like, remember the celebrity boxing matches like 10, 20 years ago? You get like, I don't know, Mickey Rourke or whatever and whoever. And it was like...
Oh, no, I don't know that.
Yeah, it was this big thing for like, I think in the 80s and early 90s or something like that.
Oh.
You know,
well, I know
it
because of Robot Chicken. Because Robot Chicken, like that sort of clay animation show, and they do like their own fake celebrity death matches. So it's based on that, right?
There's a ton of money in this, like even like just like, and because these people have followings, like so that's why it's like I want to know who would you fight, Matt?
Like a marketing person?
Yeah, it has to be somebody in our space.
Oh man,
I'd fight Tony Robbins.
Tony Robbins, interesting. I think I know Russell Brunson will probably kick a lot of ass because he's been wrestling for a long time.
He's a wrestler. It's true.
Yeah, I mean, I need somebody scrawny. I think I would probably go with like Brendan Burchard.
He's pretty small.
Yeah, I could take Brendan Burchard. Yaro, who's your matchup?
Man, it's funny. I think about the answer to this question, and throughout my career as an internet marketer, people have come along.
Yannick Silver.
What, Yannick? Yeah, well,
yeah,
maybe not Yannick.
Yannick.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. You guys have
we have the same name. I'm not gonna beat him up because he has a YS and I'm a YS too. But plus he's huge. I don't know if I stand a chance. He's pretty big.
Is he? Yeah, I guess he's kind of big. Yeah.
But there's always been like someone who's come along and done what you did better. Like I remember, Pat Flynn comes along and he starts blogging and podcasting and has a bigger audience. And then like. I don't want to fight Lewis Howes because he's also huge. But Lewis comes along and boom, takes off with the podcast,
So you're going with Pat Flynn.
I mean, Pat Flynn's pretty small. So I kind of worry, though, because...
You know what, actually?
He's pretty fit, though. He does train a lot, but yeah.
Sorry, go. You know who I would fight would be Ty Lopez. Because
that'd be good.
I was doing my social media director training, teaching people how to start a career in social media. And it wasn't until Ty Lopez did his thing, which was like many years later, that all of a sudden it flooded the market with all these people teaching you how to start your own agency. I had been doing this for like 5 or 6 years at this point when he started that, and he made it like very popularized, right? I still remember the day that it launched. I was actually at Jeff Walker's LaunchCon. I think I was with you, Tom.
Yeah,
and
that's
then
right. That's where
people
we
were
met.
texting me. It was in October. I remember this. And then people were texting me. They're like, "Did you see what Ty Lopez lost?" Like I had like multiple people messaging me this. And then I looked at it. And I was like, "Oh shit!" And then I was like, now it's like an open market. Yeah. And it kind of killed my vibe for like before. It was like a unique offering
that's
that I
great
had.
because you got some beef. and that's what sells a
what you
fight.
need.
So that's great.
Yeah.
We need to.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to start DMing Ty Lopez right now,
Yeah.
saying that Matt wants to fight
I
him.
will fight, but he is fucking, excuse my language, but he is jacked. So I'm pretty sure. But he's short, right? He's short. So I think if I have like 6 months to train, then
Yeah, I'll train you.
then
I'll
I
be
think
your trainer.
Then I
I'll
think
come
I have
out.
a pretty
We'll do
good
a whole
chance.
camp.
Since we're
Yeah.
sharing people who kind of jumped in our space, I own the domain name 2hourworkday.com. So you can have a guess who came out with a certain book and stole my thunder before I
Oh, you mean you had it? You had
I
it before?
before the 4-hour work week. So I remember like going, yeah, this is going to be a digital nomad, travel, perfect, 2 hours a day running your business. And then this book comes out, 4-hour work week. And I'm like, and of course it took off, as we all know. And
Damn.
This what is it? The 7 minute, was it 7 minute abs? And it's like 70-second
Yeah,
abs
right.
or
I always
something
do
like
something
that.
less.
Everybody's always trying to.
although
one-up.
mine was actually more. It was 2 hours a day. He was 4 hours a week. So technically his was less hours, but
That's good.
it's
true.
It's funny when someone comes out and actually does so much better. I shouldn't say it's funny. It's soul crushing sometimes because you're like, wow, I do feel like I could have taught, or certainly I'm capable of teaching the same thing. But they just did better marketing. They had better marketing at the end of the day. So
Yeah.
And also partnerships,
that's
connection.
all better marketing, right?
Right? That sort of thing. Well, yeah.
I mean, if you put
it's,
if
maybe
you
not
put
as
a
much
book
marketing.
and you put
It's like,
the chutzpah, like Tim was strategic, going to conferences to meet bloggers, knowing that he was going to get them all to
Right.
talk about his book. It's like a big rollout
yeah.
plan from the very beginning. And don't get me wrong, I love
that's
Tim.
right. He did a lot of,
He's very smart,
Yeah.
and he's also
I even heard-
he's a
I even
previous
heard him,
wrestler
like-
too. So I'm not going to fight with him either. So
Well, he also,
I think he would kick
and I
your
think
ass, yeah.
according to his book, he was like he in Thailand or something like that. Didn't he do some professional Thai
Yeah,
fights or something
Thai
like that
fighting,
in
and I
one?
think-
So he'd be. Yeah.
he'd be like a multidisciplinary ninja kind of guy. So I don't think I would have a go. And he was
This
he was
would
a
be great,
bouncer
though.
once too. So yeah, no.
Yaro versus Tim, Matt versus.
You know what we could do?
I like this,
what we'll
this
do
lineup.
is we'll just try to get like Tim Ferriss and Ty Lopez. Just like we'll make them start beef with each other. We'll just start rumors that they're talking shit about each other. So they fight each other, and then they both get their ass kicked, and we
we get the money.
I mean,
As long as we get the we get the
Yeah,
pay game.
we
get
have
the
the,
ticket,
yeah,
ticket
we
game.
get the $5
Floyd
million.
Floyd
Yeah,
Mayweather
yeah.
contract, so we get the money out of it.
yeah. We'll go figure
Somewhere.
out what was in that contract.
Little fine print. And Matt and Yaro and Tom get all the money from your fight. Tick box.
That's right.
If you don't tick this box, then all your money goes to these guys.
I think, but just
Okay.
to close it out though, I will say that I think
Yeah.
something like that is an underrated opportunity. If anybody would, I'm excited to explore it. So start DMing Tim to fight Yaro, and let's see what happens.
Well, you know how conferences, right? They get these guest speakers, celebrities, right? Imagine you go to like the next like 10x conference, but it's Ty Lopez versus Tim Ferriss.
That's right.
People would go wild, right? So I think you're right. I think if we set up a fight at one of these conferences,
I think a lot of people would like to see Ty get beat up too. It's kind of sad to say, but
Yeah.
it's probably he's the
well,
villain.
that's why you always need the bad guy.
You need the
the
villain.
villain. Yeah,
But-
exactly. But the other one too would be like Dan Lok. Dan Lok would kick some ass too,
another
right?
potential villain.
Oh, that would be
He's kinda
great.
ninja.
I think, like you just said before, though, Matt, or was you, Tom? This is the thing. Like, there's an agency now that's specializing in pulling creators, not internet marketing so much as mainstream
Yeah.
YouTubers, right? And actually setting up fights, and it's like an income stream. It's a new income stream for a creator. Get into a fight with another creator.
Right. That'd be fun. I feel like I would really do it if I was like,
Yeah,
given the opportunity.
Yeah, and the thing is, it looks like, it doesn't have to be pro fight, like the light gloves or whatever. You could do probably the headgear route, I think. I mean, whatever. It seems like they've done it a couple different ways in the last few years. So, like, I'm sure there's a lot of opportunities. And just get in the ring once, it's like, yeah, I think there's a lot of potential here. I think we need to keep exploring this.
What I would be interested in is being able to just train for like 3 to 6 months.
Yeah,
To me, I would love that. Like you get a big payday, so you're like could just take 6 months to just train, and then do the fight, whatever.
I played
think
tennis in university. I'm not getting into a boxing. I'll do a celebrity tennis match though, no problem.
Ooh. So speaking of fights and battles, a lot of people want to know what happened to Jesse from the Nelk Boys. So I know you guys are not huge fans of Nelk Boys. I've been watching Nelk Boys pretty much since they started. I think they had like 3,000 subscribers when I started watching them back in the day, this is maybe like 6 or 7 years ago, pranks were really big on YouTube. Remember, if you know, like Vitali, there was like Simple Pickup, there was Loft. I loved Loft. A lot of these guys doing these pranks. And these guys were Canadian. Nelk boys were Canadian guys. And I noticed that they were like in Ontario doing stuff. And, you know, I was watching their silly pranks. They were doing a lot of like pretending to be an employee at Walmart, pretending to be an employee at Starbucks. And they would find some of their fans, would give them their uniforms so that way they can go there and pull off some pranks. And it was originally started with 3 guys, but then one of the guys left very early on. He's now back as one of the other characters. But anyways, it was basically MTV Jesse and Kyle Forgard, okay? And they continue to grow their channel, to millions of subscribers. I think they were at maybe 5 million subscribers, 4 million. And then they brought Steve Will Do It in, and I think Steve Will Do It is now a partner in Nelk Boys or Full Send, whatever you want to call it. And I was noticing as Steve got more involved that I noticed him sort of, I don't know what the word is, like pushing out or kind of maybe not being as polite to or not as loving towards Jesse. And I remember observing it while watching their videos, that thinking that I used to think that Steve was kind of an a-hole, you know? And I was kind of noticing these just subtle little cues within their videos, which most people wouldn't notice. I'm very observant to people's behaviors and facial expressions or whatever. And I was noticing this. And then all of a sudden you start noticing that Jesse stopped showing up in the videos. And then all of a sudden they kind of mentioned that he left because they were doing a lot of partying and drinking and he wanted to quit drinking. So he wanted to go do his own thing. So they said, okay, he's no longer part of the, on-camera crew, but he was managing all of their merch stuff. So he was doing all the design for their clothing and their drops. That was how the main way they were making money before, was through their Full Send clothing drops they would do every 3 months or so. And then not too long ago, just like a couple weeks ago, so back up. And then last year, Jesse took over. They had another YouTube channel that was just called youtube.com/fullsend. And Jesse started his own show there, which was, not connected to the Nelk Boy stuff, but it was on the Full Send channel, which Full Send is kind of their brand name they use. And he was doing the show. He called the show Shithole. It was weird. And I think it's a really weird name, actually. But then he's doing kind of skits, his own version of comedy, which he has a very loyal following to. You look at the comments on his videos, people love it, right? I think it's okay. It's good. I actually really admire his creativity and that sort of thing. So that was going on, and everyone's always questioning what happened to Jesse from the Nelk Boys. You see a lot of people asking this. They've mentioned it on the Full Send podcast, how they want to get Jesse on the podcast one day to kind of talk about it, whatever. They've never talked any shit about each other, right? So, it appears like, they just kind of were going their separate ways. But the thing is that I think Jesse owns a large portion of the Full Send brand and the business and so on. And the Nelk Boys have gone on to launch their own NFT. It's called MetaCard. They launched their own hard seltzer called Happy Dad. And now they just launched supplements.co, which is their supplement brand, right? So they're launching all these other businesses, doing all these other things. And Jesse seems not involved in that stuff. So just a few weeks ago, the Full Send channel got renamed to Sunday. Just Sunday. And that got more people leaving comments and questioning, why is this channel not called Full Send anymore? So I have a prediction. I think that Jesse and Kyle are probably going through court proceedings right now. That's why they're not talking about it. Both of them are just not mentioning anything about it, and to the point that it's weird. A lot of people are saying, hey, the fans deserve to know what's going on here, what happened, right? So that's what I think. It's just interesting to see that, you start a channel, it blows up. This happens a lot. I hear a lot of YouTubers talking about this, where they can't keep up the lifestyle of what it takes to continue making content, right? I hear this all aspects. I was just listening to an interview with Mr. Beast's manager, and they were talking about how much longer can Mr. Beast continue doing what he's doing, right? They're thinking maybe 5 to 7 more years, right? I know Graham Stephan was talking about this as well, where he was like, he doesn't necessarily want to keep making, personal finance videos for the rest of his life, right? So you get pigeonholed into this kind of community, right? So the Nelk boys are very much partying, drinking. Now they're really big into gambling. They're obviously got sponsorship with a company called Stake, and they're promoting the crap out of it. I'm sure they're making millions of dollars promoting online gambling, right? So just interesting, kind of seeing that dynamic and kind of like the kind of content you create creates your lifestyle, right? And then if you if you choose to change your lifestyle at some point, it could be very detrimental. So,
Well, I think the concept, the idea on the content side is pretty interesting. That last point you made, which is this idea of just like burnout that happens almost, or even burnout might be one piece of it. The other might just be like the useful lifespan of content and almost the fleeting nature of content, how disposable it is. Like we were just talking about how excited we are about creating content. I am still. So I say that at the same time, recognizing that like anything I put out there, I think when I first started, I thought, oh, this will last forever. But now I kind of see it slightly differently. I'm like, so much of this stuff is so disposable, at least to the audience. Like if I just stopped posting anything, people would forget about me in like a few months, or you know what I mean? That would be that, and it would be fine. Like I'm not complaining. It's just the reality of the situation, because there's always so much new content. And it's just a very fascinating topic. It's like, where do you go once you're in that space and you're creating? Because there's a lot of content creators who have come and gone, gotten very big followings, and just kind of have shut down, don't do it anymore. I think that is particularly fascinating, because I don't know a ton about the Nelk boys and necessarily what's going on with them.
well, the Nelk boys also, like Kyle, they didn't want to do, I guess, as much pranks, so they're trying to figure out what they're going to do later if they get sick of doing it. They started the Full Send podcast. When you have a podcast interview show, like, there's also H3H3. He started his podcast thing, right? There's a lot of people who go the podcast route. Even like Graham Stephan started the iced coffee hour, and so on. So it's like, that's one way they're branching out. They're also kind of starting these businesses. I predict the Nelk boys are going to sell Happy Dad, I'm guessing, for $1 billion within 5 years. That's been my prediction from the beginning. That's why they never called it Full Send Seltzer, because Full Send is part of their brand. Happy Dad is just like a random name, right? It's like, what is that, right? So they're just, building out these businesses they can later sell. But like, we kind of talked about this on the last episode, Yaro and I, about how when you're kind of sharing your ongoing story, like if let's say you're vlogging, you'll end up going out doing cool things because you need to. It's part of your content. So it can actually, like, for the right kind of, content creation, it can actually help like create a great lifestyle for you, right?
I was listening to Colin and Samir the other day, and they were talking about the life cycle of a creator and how, much like celebrity, there is a limelight you get to enjoy. It's a growth curve, and then that curve inevitably flows downward. It could be by choice. You just stop producing yourself. You take a break. I think we've seen this with everyone. Casey Neistat is maybe a recent example. Left and wouldn't leave, but stopped and came back. Emma Chamberlain, I hear a lot about. Not actually personally followed her career, but I heard that she was taking a break. I think back to one of the very first YouTube celebrities, Jenna Marbles. I remember her. I don't know if you guys think back to a long time ago. She had her little puppy dog or something that she would talk to and do this voice and thing like that. And she was huge audience.
Ray William Johnson from Equals 3. He used to like do viral video reviews and jokes and stuff. And he was huge. He was like the biggest YouTuber at one point. And then he just stopped because he got sick of it.
And that's the point. I think there's two things here. There's your career longevity. It's inevitable. I mean, I went through this too. I had my blog go through a rocket ship phase, and then a sort of a stagnant hibernating phase where you're still getting results, but you're no longer growing like crazy, to then a sort of slow falling down, mostly because I moved on to kind of not discard my blog, but to start another company. In this case, it was Inbox Done. So that business and the traffic of the blog just slowly dropped. So sometimes it's like that. It's a choice. But like hopefully a lot of creators now know to do, and you've mentioned many examples, you need to start other vehicles that are not dependent on you showing up on a YouTube video or writing a blog post. So I was smart. I had an email list from the early days, so that I still have, and that doesn't disappear if I stop writing blog posts. It does slowly disappear, but it's way more stable. Creating another company, like you said, starting a podcast, creating brands that are not your personal brand, all these things you can do. Sometimes though, it's like just a continuation of you being creative in different ways and different platforms. But I mean, I think about who is the best example ever for longevity as a creator. And I think most people would think about Madonna probably is the best person who's ever reinvented herself.
Really? I don't know about that one. Okay.
Who else has been
Madonna? I don't know.
Who's been more consistently able to maintain their status as an elite in their space?
I think the Paul brothers. I would say
were the Paul brothers famous in the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s? You know, it's like, no, they only just came along. Yeah, I'm talking about reinvention, changing style, you know, still being considered like, you know, Madonna came out and it was like Michael Jackson, Madonna. And then there was Britney Spears, but there was Britney Spears and Madonna. And then, you know, later on, she just was always, maybe in the last 10, 15 years, not so much. But for her, I can't think of any other, maybe Michael Jackson's the only other person who has done the same. Unfortunately, he died. And that's something that we all, as a creator, if you're the face, you have to accept that. So I think for the sake of your retirement and your ability to fund yourself long term, you have to come up with either make a lot of money and then take that money and do something smart with it, or spin off something else that makes a lot of money.
Yeah, that's it too though. When you know, because the content creator concept there too, maybe slightly more relatable to a lot of people listening too. You know, you mentioned YouTube. I think PewDiePie was the big one, right? I think he's still around. I don't know. I never watched it. I just kind of knew of him. Yeah, it's like when you have the limelight, it's like you just got to milk it as much as you can at that point in time.
Yeah, ride the wave.
This stuff doesn't last forever. Ride the wave, yeah. And it's like if you're able to milk it and get lots and lots of money, it's like good on you. Do what you got to do, you know. Or this maybe a strategic transition into products or a business or something else outside of yourself. But it's like that kind of smart. You have to do something with it because it is fleeting, or it'll burn you out, or you're just going to get tired of it, or just the trends change. And I also feel like almost now the trends change even faster than before. It's almost like it's
more fragmented.
The cycles are even shorter. Yeah. Yes, and more fragmented.
I think like I was going to say like Mr. Beast and Mr. Beast Burger, you know, it's smart for him to take his brand while it's at the top of, you know, the food chain, and then spin off a burger joint. Now, if you launch Mr. Beast Burger without there ever being a Mr. Beast YouTube channel, how well does it go? Probably not as well. Does it still succeed as a business? You know, hard to say. Burgers are good, maybe it does, but it's a competitive space, and you know, and I think that's a very typical characteristic for a creator, where they also get tired of being the face. Maybe they're getting older, their energy is dropping. You know, I was hearing about I can't remember the name of the YouTuber, but there's a YouTuber who was doing well, but then started doing like what they call where you eat as much food as you can videos. I don't know what that trend is called, gorging or something like that. You know, and
that sounds like a self-destructive.
Well, this is exactly what happened. So he started this, and unfortunately / fortunately, as soon as he started doing gorging videos, his traffic went through the roof. But now he was trapped to this technique of growing his audience, and of course he got obese as a result. We got to find the name. I can't remember what it is, but you know, he's in terrible physical shape now, but to keep feeding the beast not Mr. Beast, but the beast that is the YouTube algorithm, he's got to keep eating a lot of food or give it up and try and find another angle. And that's hard when you've tasted millions of visitors or millions of views to a video.
It's like something out of a sequel to Seven.
Right.
It's like, oh, you got the fame now, you got to keep going. Yikes.
I think there's a delay, Yaro. That's why when we're talking, there's a little bit of delay. But yeah, it's important when you start a YouTube channel, I think it's not to rely on the ad revenue, but to use it as a vehicle to grow an audience for a business, but not rely on the content to be the business. I think that's the key for starting a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
All right, so have you guys heard about the kids YouTuber named Blippi? I know you guys don't have kids, so you might not know Blippi.
Can't say I do.
All right.
I do have kids, but I don't know who Blippi is.
Oh my God, dude, you gotta know Blippi. Okay, so Blippi is, I would say, the best kids YouTuber, okay? Because they got Ryan's World, right? And everybody knows Ryan's World. I'm sorry, hopefully they're not gonna watch this, but one of his parents is kind of annoying. All right, that's all I'm gonna say. People who watch Ryan's World know what I'm talking about. And it's also not very educational. It's all just kind of, let's look at slime and let's play. And like, you know, kids like watching it. It's entertaining. That's fine. But they're not really learning a whole lot. When my son was growing up, between the ages of, I'll say like 2 to 5, loved Blippi. And I also enjoyed watching Blippi because it's actually educational, and it's like you could bear watching it, right? And I remember when I was first seeing it, I looked up who Blippi was because, he kind of reminded me of myself. He's around my age, dressing up silly and kind of, doing his thing with kids. And I used to joke about how I could do that because I like playing with kids, but I'm not going to do that. But apparently now, Blippi, which his name is Stephen John, is now worth over $75 million, which is insane to me because I remember when I first started watching him with Morkes, he didn't appear to be that successful. Like, he didn't appear to be like, that. One thing I know with kids' YouTube channels is they get pretty good ad revenue because they're very family friendly, right? People who want to reach parents and so on. There's a lot of advertisers wanting to reach those parents, right? But the other thing too is that kids will rewatch the same videos. So he has videos that have 1 billion views, or maybe not 1 billion, but hundreds of millions of views, right? Because kids are just rewatching the same things over and over again. I also see him reusing his videos and creating compilations and stuff like that, right? So he'll make one video and then there's other channels of compilations. There's a lot of Blippi videos. But what's interesting about Blippi is Stephen John, he used to be a digital marketer just like us. He used to be the kind of guy going to TNC and doing that sort of thing. So he had a marketing agency doing SEO or something like that. And then he started, becoming Blippi. And
I
so
can see why, Matt, you're thinking about pulling out the old bow tie and hat and doing some kids videos.
It would be embarrassing. Honestly, I think I could because I am really good with kids. Like when I go to the park with my son, I control all the children. Like I make them all play together, and like people always laugh about it. I have like a bunch of little water guns, and I'll bring all the water guns and make all the kids have a water fight, and So I think I could probably pull it off. But yeah, I just think there's like a big market for kids YouTubers. There's also another one called Genevieve's Playhouse, and what they do is they take toys and they just make make a movie with the toys, right? Like make the voice, like, hey, what are you doing? Yeah, like that kind of thing. And they're actually entertaining. Like they have some animation to it and stuff. I've watched a few of them that are like pretty good. Like they're pretty funny. I actually try to get Morkes into, he now knows how to use iMovie and so on. And so I'm getting him into making movies with his toys because he barely plays with his toys. He loves his iPad and he loves making videos. Right? He's got his own YouTube channel. Super epic Mr. Morkes, I got a shout out. So, I just think there's a huge market for kids YouTubers. I'm just curious you guys' thoughts on making kids content.
Well, I grew up watching Sesame Street, and I certainly was able to watch the same episodes over and over again as a kid too. So I can totally understand that. I love that this is an opportunity for an individual to jump on YouTube and create things for kids and get exceptionally wealthy from it. Because, I remember hearing whatever it was, Blue's Clues, Barney the Dinosaur, where I grew up in Australia, there was the Wiggles. There was so many like things. And these were like superstar rock stars for kids. They'd have concerts and, tens of thousands of kids would show up. And you knew they were making a crazy amount of money because they get syndicated around the world on every single English TV network, every single country that speaks English. So this is just a modern day equivalent of it. Only thing I guess I'm a little jealous because I don't feel like I would be at all good at this, Matt. I'm not like you. I would not want to try and be entertaining for kids in any shape or form. So,
well, it's funny. Anyone who's like an early childhood educator, they get paid like almost minimum wage, right? And if they really love kids, entertaining kids, like starting a YouTube channel where you're teaching kids various things. When I want Morkes to watch YouTube, I want to watch something semi-educational versus just like kind of like dumb stuff. Like I remember like Peppa Pig. Peppa Pig is Peppa Pig. It's okay, but it's like Peppa Pig is like completely not educational at all, right? It's actually kind of like counterintuitive.
I think I learned how to count thanks to Sesame Street. I'm pretty sure the count on Sesame Street. The guy who would do count, right? Like Count Dracula. I don't remember learning to count how to count anywhere else. So it's got to be Sesame Street.
Yeah. How Tom? How are you with allowing your kids to like watch YouTube? Do you let them? Do they have kids YouTube, or you let them have regular YouTube?
Yeah, kids YouTube, but only in Spanish. So that's how I do it. I'm like, if they watch anything, it's going to be in Spanish. So I just try to make
Spanish?
Them, because I want them to be bilingual. It's an easy one to start with. So
interesting.
So actually, Peppa Pig we watch in Spanish if we watch it at all. Oh. And so then there's
with subtitles or what?
Maybe, maybe not. But again, it's funny because when I was traveling around the world, it's like we'd be in Vietnam and like going to get laundry done, and it would be like the son of the parent who runs the laundromat would be like translating for the parent. And I remember asking him like, how'd you learn English? He's like, TV. So I'm just like reversing it for our kids. Like if they're gonna watch TV, it's always in Spanish. So but
interesting.
Yeah, the one I look at actually is Coco Melon. Was the one I was looking at. I almost thought about like reaching out and trying to interview those people because I was fascinated by it when I first had kids. I was like, well, we need to keep them distracted with something. So I started to look into these spaces, and there's a lot of stuff that I'm like, I don't want their brain to melt just watching the screen. So I want it to be educational or some value. Again, the Spanish thing gives it a little bit of value in my mind, because then they're learning it and they're able to kind of communicate with it and speak it. But I do find the whole niche very fascinating. Like just an almost infinite amount of money it seems like you can make in it. So again, the $75 million net worth of Blippi, haven't even heard of him, but doesn't surprise me. I think there's probably a lot of creators making a lot of money in that space.
Blippi did the thing where he did like translating his videos. So I think he has a Spanish channel. I think he has a few other ones like that. So he did that. Well, he got a shoe deal with K-Swiss. So K-Swiss was trying to work with creators. Apparently it didn't really work out for them because they did the Gary V's shoes. You remember that? That was the first one they did.
I was going to say, do those still exist?
Blippi. I don't know if they still exist. I'm not sure. But I heard that it wasn't working, their strategy anyways. But they had the shoes for Blippi. I tried to get them, but they weren't available in Canada. It was a little difficult to get. But he does have merch and toys and stuff like that. But I'm guessing he's just making boatloads of money from the AdSense because it's family-friendly content. All the advertisers want that.
It's the engagement.
Right? So I think
it's got to be the engagement. You think about the video plays all the way through. There's no like attention deficit with a 3-year-old.
Oh, right. That's right.
They're usually not controlling the screen too oftentimes.
That's right. You just set it and you forget it, right? You just let it play. Even like those ads are just going to play because no one's there to skip it,
But,
and I wonder how much of it, like we used to watch a lot of it on the Apple TV, right? Not even on like YouTube, app or on your phone and stuff, right? So, yeah. So Jordan Peterson, what happened to Jordan Peterson? I saw recently that he got suspended from Twitter, which he called a ban because he got suspended and they said that he would need to delete his tweet, which he references as apologizing, delete his tweet or he's not allowed back on Twitter. So then he posted this video. I'm going to pull it up on my screen right here. Interesting video. I mean, he's in a dark room, kind of a navy blue background. He's wearing a suit, very direct to camera with another side camera going on it. I was actually watching it and I thought it was funny because I actually think he makes really good points. He diagnoses every part of what he said in this tweet and whether, you could justify it as being, harassment, hate speech or whatever. And it's just, I find it really entertaining. Did you guys see it, Tom?
No, I haven't. What was the tweet, or are we going to get banned for repeating the tweet?
So the tweet was, remember when pride was a sin and Ellen Page just had her breasts removed by a criminal physician, right? So he was referencing how, being gay used to be a sin for thousands of years, right? So he's like, that's true.
Well, in the sin of pride, right? Conceptually, like I think he's even going farther back than that. Like just the idea of pride itself is considered a sin, biblically speaking, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So then he's like, whatever, and then he referenced. This was the funny part that I thought was funny. How he said Ellen Page, which Ellen Page is the female name. I don't even know who Ellen Page is, by the way, and so I don't even know what he's talking about. No. But he's referencing how Ellen was a woman when she or he had her breast removed. So he's like, he can't reference Ellen. I don't know what Ellen's new male name was, but he can't say that he had his breast removed because
Elliot,
technically speaking,
it's Elliot Page.
Only Elliot, yeah. So technically speaking, a woman would have breasts, a man wouldn't have breasts, and if a man had breasts, and why did he get them removed and all that? It's just like a play on words, the whole thing, So it's just like, So, I think it's interesting that gets him. Like, I could see also, actually, sorry, I want to back up. I could see why, if I was Ellen Page, I don't want someone speaking about my breasts being removed, It's kind of personal. Why are you bringing it up, I guess. But I don't know the story behind the whole thing. I have no idea who even this person was, right? But it does kind of get into this kind of like, what can you or can't you say, right? This is why Elon Musk was, talking about buying Twitter and the censorship on Twitter and what's going on there, right? And it's also interesting that he could post this video on YouTube and not get banned on YouTube, right? Who knows? Maybe he will. But I think the whole thing is just interesting to see like what you are allowed or not allowed to say. And then furthermore, on kind of what's going on with Jordan Peterson, I thought this is interesting. He just got a podcast deal with Daily Wire, which is Ben Shapiro's company, which is part of Daily Wire Plus. So it's basically a paid subscription. So we're seeing more podcasters, like celebrity podcasters, doing a paid subscription. I know Dave Chappelle had one. I don't know about that. I feel like it's never a good move. I don't know. Like the Dave Chappelle podcast, I heard about it when it came out. Never hear about it now. There's never anything about it. I don't know what it's about. I don't know why he did it. I don't know how much money they're making from it. Where you look at something like a Joe Rogan, which was just like on YouTube and, it blew up and now it's like the biggest podcast in the world, right? So it's kind of interesting how this podcast, I wonder about whether, being behind a paywall, he can kind of say whatever he wants. And maybe that's kind of what he's going for, just be able to speak and get paid to do that.
Isn't Rogan paywall too? Didn't he get bought by
Shopify?
Shopify?
No, it's not a
Spotify?
paywall. No. Yeah. Spotify, it's actually a big misconception when he first did the deal, was that it's always going to be free is what the deal was.
It is free, but they pulled some of the stuff from YouTube, interestingly enough, too. So that's not, it's not the same thing. And that was, I guess, more of a strategic play with Spotify. But you can't, I don't think you can find all his content on YouTube anymore either, which is kind of interesting.
Anywhere, they pulled tons of episodes.
Yep.
Yeah. Someone was tracking it.
Yeah.
I know there were people tracking it on how many episodes actually got removed.
Honestly, I think this is one of the hardest things to do as a platform owner. I've been thinking about this because I'm building some software, Candid, which is, a platform where creators will monetize their videos. And I'm thinking, well, what if someone puts up naked videos or says something in a video that for some people it's highly offensive and for other people it's just free speech. And you as the owner of the platform kind of define, you're like the arbiter of what is appropriate. And some people love Jordan Peterson, and I've come across probably more women that do not like Jordan Peterson a lot. And it's impossible. You can't please all the people all the time. I was actually looking into how decentralized social media might allow decentralized moderation as well. And the idea a tweet like that goes up and then like Reddit, it's got the upvote, the downvote. So it could be surfaced, but then it could be pushed down. But there's risk with that too, because you can get the mob of one side pushing down or pushing up some content just because they have numbers. So this is difficult. I don't have an answer for it. I feel like this particular example, if another person, like if you posted about Ellen Page in the same way on your Twitter, I doubt you're going to get suspended or removed.
No, because it has a lot to do with his status.
Yeah, and his existing controversy already.
Right.
And
but
size of his
now
audience
that they did
too,
that,
right?
Yeah, but now that they did that, now that story's bigger. I would not have heard of that if they had not banned him. I was listening to Joe Rogan was on what's his name's podcast
Lex Friedman.
Recently, Lex Friedman's, and he was talking about during that time in January 2022 when he was kind of getting canceled, that his show had never grown faster. He did over 2 million more subscribers during that time. So by kind of trying to cancel people, around these sort of topics, it's just giving it more exposure, right?
Yeah, but what about some of these actors who've been canceled recently, like Kevin Spacey? I think his canceling has had way more negative effects on his career versus, say, Joe Rogan, where no such thing as bad news. He's getting more subscribers. He gets, more revenue. So
right, but Kevin Spacey did something wrong.
Yeah, wasn't he
said something wrong?
I think his was like a sexual assault kind
it
of
was.
thing. Wasn't
Yeah,
it?
apparently, allegedly.
Okay.
So that was
assaulting
something.
Allegedly.
Many men. So.
Yeah, it was allegedly. So that's the difference. Is putting it's like words.
So it's the deed itself,
and
right?
it's not
how
like
far
it was
does
a
it go
direct.
and what.
Yeah, because this is an interpretation of the words, right? So it's whatever someone says, the meaning is filtered through your mind, and then that's what the meaning is. You know what I mean? Like everyone can interpret things in different ways, right? So it's kind of like, it's really kind of like this psyche of the world is so weird right now, where people want to like interpret things in a certain way and say this is right and that's wrong.
And it's country to country
and
too.
It's just like,
Yeah, true. But it's funny because it's like I almost feel like my perspective on this almost is like I try to project like 10, 20 years in the future and look back on it. I think like free speech online will be like a historical footnote when we look back on like the 80s, 90s, because it was pushed so hard at that time. Free speech, whatever. And now you just see the gates shutting and the platforms that control it. And it's like a couple things to understand. And this is relevant to creators. You don't control these platforms. You do not have free speech on these platforms. They control the narrative however they want to. And, to that point, it's like, yeah, by shutting them down, all of a sudden that tweet gets more exposure. But Twitter, they don't care. Like, that's not the point. They're playing a very different game than you and I. Their game's very different, but that's why I think you're seeing a lot of creators move to their own platforms and I think that's a huge opportunity. Like right now, like if you were an entrepreneur or something like that, or a software creator, to build platforms that are outside of these platforms, to be able to host and host these banned, dissenting opinions and things like that. Listen, I know that treads a certain, we don't even have to get into where that treads, that line that treads, but it's almost the point that if you, especially comedians too, you just see there's so many that have been banned in the last few years, but they're starting their own platforms, they're doing their own things. It's almost like something you have to account for. Like, so if you're going to be on these mainstream platforms, YouTube, Twitter, whatever, it's like get it while the getting's good, but then you got to move off and build your own platform. I think that's ultimately the if there's a lesson to be learned, it's like you must be able to communicate with your platform, your audience directly. Otherwise, like those, especially if you're controversial, those gates will be shut. And even if you're not controversial, you just say something in passing. I know some people recently in the last year who've been knocked off huge platforms because of just like one offhanded comment. So like it can happen pretty lightning quick.
I remember recently watching one of those documentaries about the history of video games, and they were talking about how, you guys probably remember this, in the 90s, there was a lot of legal cases on violence in games. Mortal Kombat was one that kind of triggered sort of a political, like investigation into it. And I remember looking at that going, oh my gosh, Mortal Kombat is tame compared to what we'll now see in a video game or in a lot of media. And I feel like the sort of the arc of what we find acceptable opens up more and more over time. Like, we get a little bit numb to it maybe, but what also has happened is these platforms have become so global, so distributed, so open, anyone can do anything. Yet we've got parts of society, like I try to think about teenagers now, and how the school rumor yard was hard enough when it wasn't spread through Snapchat, right? Like someone said this about you and you're like, oh my gosh, they said that about me. And you would sink as a teenager thinking that other people are talking about you. And now you'll be in your face on a YouTube video, or maybe not YouTube, on a TikTok or a Snapchat or whatever. And that is not good. Like, and I feel like there's the pendulums that swing. Like it opens up more, and then there's consequences of it opening up, and then we have to try and adapt to it. And then there's cancel culture and platforms trying to control things. But then it gets to the point where it influences political elections. Like, for example, I was watching the Philippines election just recently, and I think it's Marcos just got into power, and he's the son or the grandson of a dictator in the Philippines. So
right.
I was trying to come up with an example that makes this relevant. This is too strong, but it's kind of like as if Hitler's grandson now became the chancellor of Germany. So 2 generations ago, they wouldn't touch. They know this horrible person. They had uprisings. People died to get rid of this leader and force him out. But then enough time passes that his grandson gets into power. And it's primarily because the grandson was able to make use of social media and just spread this message among the youth of how effective he will be as a leader and how he'll make their lives better. And they don't have a memory of what the family did in the past. So it's kind of creating a very dangerous situation where social media can be the arbiter of what is right or wrong simply because someone's better at making a viral video or not. So I think it does head to dangerous places, but I don't think it's going to stop. I think it's going to become more open. Guys like Jordan Peterson can say anything and it's going to be okay, because that's what's going to happen with decentralized platforms. There'll be somewhere they can say it and not get canceled. I just don't know how far that goes when it comes to politics and safety of our children, free speech, all that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's getting too extreme. Like the censorship is too much. That is becoming unclear of like what should be censored and what should not be. Before it was like, hate speech is hate speech and that's it, right? If someone threatens to murder somebody or says something really direct, a direct attack, that kind of stuff I could agree with, but when they're censoring this where it's kind of an abstract opinion.
It's all the wrong think stuff. I mean, straight up, like I've read a lot of his, it's got 1984-esque, patterns to it. Let's be real. It's like, this is double plus good, at the end of the day, like this is wrong think. And that's where it's going. But again, I look at that, I'm like, what are you going to do? Like, I'm very pragmatic that way. I'm like, it's like, what are you going to do? You don't control these platforms. So you got to get on your own. You got to find, if you have things to say, you got to figure out a way to say them somewhere else then.
I think that's going to happen. We're going to each have our platform, and we're going to have a lovely echo chamber that reinforces our beliefs. And, it'll be who has the biggest platform in reality, because they'll have bigger numbers. And that's unfortunately when people get persecuted. And, we see it in countries where there's 3 religions, one dominant one, 2 smaller ones. The 2 smaller ones don't have as much power and often, get persecuted. So what we really need to do is kind of, I don't know, we need to come up with I always think of the golden rule. We're getting very philosophical and religious here, but, do unto others what you would have do unto yourself. And if there was a way to just universally apply that, and I kind of think of this and go, all right, Jordan Peterson saying this about my body, if he was following the golden rule, would that be considered appropriate? Like, he might say, I don't care if someone says that about me, where someone else would say, no, you're violating my body and I don't like it. So unfortunately, even something as seemingly as effective as the golden rule doesn't, cut across and solve every problem.
Yeah, I actually don't agree with what he said, that he should have said it or anything. I wouldn't defend what he said, because it is kind of like, why, like, it is technically an attack. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like, what's the relevance of why say it, But to like kind of suspend him or ban him, like they would have given him like a 7-day suspension, something like that, would have made kind of more sense to that, because it's still his opinion and he's entitled to, Twitter's about saying what's on your mind.
But it's not.
So whatever he wants.
That's the thing. That's what it claims to be, but it's not.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the thing. We have to make a
yeah,
differentiation between that now. Like, and again, I know we're getting to the philosophical territory, but like, it might say it is, but it's not. Like, there's things it's wrong think. And if it's wrong think, then it's not allowed.
Yeah.
And like, so then to that point, that tweet, it kind of made me laugh, because I was like, what is that tweet? What is the point of that tweet? But that's what was funny to me when I heard it. But I'm like, and again, it's, what do you expect too? Like, of course, that's what's going to happen. You're going to get slapped on the wrist. You're going to be put in timeout. You get put in the cage, or you get kicked off the platform entirely. Like, it's already well known. Like, these, there's places you're not allowed to go. You're not allowed to say certain things. And then you can bring up the point, well, there's all this like pornography on Twitter and all this nonsense on it and all this other stuff. Yeah, okay. That's their platform though. That's how they roll. I think we don't have to pretend that they're somehow being equitable. Like, they're not.
Right.
It's just not.
Yeah, that's right. All right, guys, so that's our episode for today. Make sure to check the links in the description if you guys want to learn more about what Yaro's got going on, what Tom's got going on. We also have a Spotify playlist. You can listen to that music while getting some work done. And it's also a playlist that you can contribute to. So if you got your favorite tracks that you listen to while you're working, you can add to the playlist. It is in the link below. And make sure to check us out. We are everywhere on YouTube. We got our podcast going. We also posting clips on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. We got a little distribution thing set up. So if you guys want to see clips and hear kind of what's going on, make sure to follow there. All right. Take care.